Uh, Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. My name is Huang Ling. I'm a medical doctor from Brazil. I would like to thank the organizing committee to inviting me to this conference today to share this study entitled Energy Alterations in Patients with Autism. My first specialty, I'm an infectious disease doctor, but I have 5 more specialties. I am general practice, nutrition doctor, and pain management, acupuncture, and homeopathy. And for the last 25 years, I've been working with traditional Chinese medicine in my own clinic in Brazil. So I will show this presentation explaining which are the energy alterations in patients with autism. This presentation will be following Hippocrates. He said that it's important to consider other ancient medical traditions prior to the knowledge we have nowadays. So in this presentation, I will use reasoning used by traditional Chinese medicine that has more than 5,000 years of existence. Next, please. Yes. In this slide, I'm showing a tree metaphor that I'm showing the different viewpoints between Western and traditional Chinese medicine. You can see that this tree has a part that's above the earth and under the earth. And what Western medicine usually treats is the symptoms in the leaf level of this tree. The part of the tree that's above the earth, you can see that there has a trunk with several branches, and each branch in this metaphor symbolizing one medical specialty. And coming out of each branch, you can see many leaves, and each leaf represents one symptom and disease treated by each medical specialty. In this case, Western medicine is treating the symptoms, but what traditional Chinese medicine understands is that all symptoms presented by the patients in each specialty is not in the leaf the problem. The leaf is only the symptom. The cause of this clinical manifestation are all under the earth. That's we cannot see by the naked eye. And there are 2 theories in traditional Chinese medicine that are yin and yang theory and the 5-element theory. And you can see that this tree has the external pathogenic factor that's surrounding this tree that is represented by the influence of cold, wind, heat, humidity, and dryness. And all these factors can induce energy alterations leading to manifestation of symptoms in the patients, especially infectious disease, such as the influence of the patients suffering from cold or pneumonia or pain in the throat or sinusitis, all can be caused by the influence of the external pathogenic factors entrance inside the body that Western medicine do not take into account in their reasoning. Next, please. All this reasoning began in 2006 when I treated one specific patient, and I will tell you his history briefly. This is a 70-year-old male patient that came to my clinic complaining pain in the legs, and he was using anti-inflammatory medication with no improvement of his condition. And he went to my clinic to search for another type of treatment, and his diagnosis in the root of the tree, according to traditional Chinese medicine, was kidney yang deficiency. He had a kidney energy deficiency, and for the treatment of these energy imbalances, this deficiency, I used Chinese dietary counseling, changing his dietary habits, and I used auricular acupuncture with apex cerebellati and systemic acupuncture. Next. And after 30 days of treatment, after 10 acupuncture sessions, he returned to my clinic and told me that his leg pain improved very much, but he also improved from another condition that I was not aware he had. He was treating glaucoma for the last 40 years with no improvement of his condition, only using eye drops. And after this treatment, he improved very much from his intraocular pressure, also coming from 14 to 17 mmHg. And as I told you, when we treat the root of the energy imbalances that is localized in the under the earth, in the root of the tree, we can treat all the patient's conditions at the same time. Even the doctor do not know that the patient has such a symptoms, such as psychological, emotional, or physical symptoms. Next, please. Okay, according to traditional Chinese medicine, autism is related to energy deficiencies in the heart, liver, kidney, and the spleen, and could be in the lung also. And these organs represented the 5 internal massive organs in traditional Chinese medicine, and is the representation of the 5-element theory. Next, please. I will explain to you. These 4 forces in yang qi blood are the main, this theory are the main cornerstone in traditional Chinese medicine reasoning. In all the treatment that Chinese medicine do, they usually aim to balance these 4 forces to achieve health. And you can see that these 4 forces, yin and yang, are produced in the kidney, blood is produced by the spleen, and the flowing of the blood inside the blood vessel is controlled by the heart, and the qi is distributed by the energy of liver and lung. And as you can see, when the patient has some energy deficiencies or imbalances between these 4 energies, there is formation of this internal fire that you can see in this slide. And the manifestation of these energy deficiencies and formation of internal fire can lead to a diverse clinical manifestation, emotional or physical symptoms. The emotional or psychological problems that came from these energy deficiencies and the heat retention could be the anxiety symptoms. The anxiety in traditional Chinese medicine came from energy deficiency and formation of internal heat. And also patients with panic syndrome also has these energy deficiencies with the heat retention in the gallbladder meridian. And some physical symptoms and disease such as that can be caused by this energy deficiency and formation of internal heat, for example, could be the formation of diabetes that's leading to indeficiency and heat retention, or patient with woman in menopause could be came from indeficiency. For example, all autoimmune disease came from this indeficiency, and all patients with cancer also have these energy deficiencies and formation of internal fire. And in all these treatment, we aim to take out this heat using changes in the dietary aspect. As following Hippocrates, he said that we need to use our medicine as our food and our food as our medicine. And the second, next please. All this introduction I would like to explain to you before to you to know how is the formation of autism patients. In this slide, you can see the 5-element theory. The 5 elements corresponds to the water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, and all these elements exist in all the universe, including inside the human being. All these 5 elements corresponds to the 5 internal massive organs that is the kidney, liver, heart, spleen, and lung, respectively. And as I told you, patients with autism, they usually have alterations in this energy inside the internal massive organs. And one internal massive organ is responsible for the formation of that yin and yang blood. And I will tell you, this 5-element theory is very different from the Western perspective, because one element is sending energy to the following element for their proper functioning. And in Western medicine, they understand that one element or one organ works independently and separately and do not exert influence on the other element. But in traditional Chinese medicine, they understand that one internal massive organs is responsible for sending energy to the following elements. So all the organs, internal organs, are interconnected by the energy flow, and one internal organ can control the functioning of the other organ. So one organ exerts an influence, positive or negatively, in the other organ, and they are interconnected. Next, please. In the autism patients, all the symptoms presented by them, such as constipation, anxiety, agitation, hyperactivity, language impairment, intellectual disability, and altered immune function, all the alterations are all in the leaf level of that tree. But what we need to understand is that all these impairment in patients with autism, all patients with autism, the alterations are in the root of that tree. And the treatment, we needed to treat the root and not only the symptoms of the patient. Sorry, I'm in the hotel. Next, please. Now I will begin to show you only one case report that of one patient that has this diagnosis since 4 years old, and he is a 16-year-old male patient. I'm sorry. And the patient's mother reported that the pregnancy was very difficult because the father had the difficulty in accepting the patient. Thus, this patient suffered rejection throughout the pregnancy. And at the beginning of the process, he was very shy and do not communicate with people, and also he didn't have, but physically he do not have any alterations. Next. Yeah. And his parents took him to a neurologist who made the diagnosis of autism. And since then, he had been treated with several modes of treatment, but with no improvement of his condition. And in 2019, his mother took him in my clinic to do some acupuncture sessions. And I measured the energy of all his internal massive organs using a radiesthesia procedure, using a crystal pendulum, measuring the chakras energy centers. And there are some studies showing that the chakras energy centers corresponds to the 5 internal massive organs in traditional Chinese medicine. And so when I measure the energy of the chakras energy centers, I am measuring the energy of the 5 internal massive organs. And I discovered that all his internal massive organs, that are the liver, heart, spleen, lung, and kidney, all of the 5 elements were in the lowest level of energy. And his treatment was started changing his dietary aspect, that I will show you. Avoiding the ingestion of dairy products, cold water, raw food, and sweets, and also to avoid the ingestion of coffee, soda, and matcha tea, and also to avoid the ingestion of fried food, egg, honey, coconut, alcoholic beverages, and melted cheese, because all these foods, according to TCM, could induce energy imbalances in the internal 5 massive organs, and leading to disharmony causing by wrong eating habits. And the second step in his treatment was the use of apex blood dilating with auricular acupuncture to take out the heat that was causing some anxiety and some physical and emotional problems. And I usually use the auricular acupuncture using mustard seeds in some points in the ear to rebalancing the internal energy of the 5 internal massive organs. And also I used some homeopathy medications to replenish the energy of these organs according to the theory that I wrote in 2015 when I began my homeopathy course in Brazil. And I wrote another theory linking the use of homeopathy with traditional Chinese medicine. And after this treatment, the mother reported that he improved very much, and he began to talk and to willing to talk with his colleagues in the school, and he started new activities such as he started the piano classes and to dance. And next, please. And these are the foods that I usually orientate to avoid, to avoid the ingestion of all dairy products. It's not only the ingestion of milk, but the ingestion of all foods that has dairy inside, such as cheese or puddings and ice creams and all the foods that could have milk. I usually orientate to avoid, because all these group of foods can induce the reduction of absorption of nutrients by the spleen and pancreas, and leading to less formation of blood, and consequently the patient would have less energy. And that's why it's very important to orientate the patient to cook their food to improve the absorption of nutrients and reduce the ingestion of cold water to absorb better the nutrients from the foods, and avoid the ingestion of many candies and sweet foods that could imbalance this energy. Next, please. And also to avoid the ingestion of all these foods that could imbalance the energy of the liver, and can increase the formation of internal heat that was causing many emotional or physical symptoms such as anxiety, allergies, and insomnia and irritability, and other problems could also be caused by these wrong eating habits. Next, please. And the ingestion of all these 3 drinks, such as the ingestion of soft drinks, coffee, and matcha tea, can reduce the energy of the kidney, leading to less production of yin-yang energy that are important to the health of these patients. Next, please. And here is the figure showing the auricular acupuncture points that I usually use, and toning the energy of the kidney, liver, spleen, heart, and lungs. And in the number 12, you can see that I did the apex bloodletting. Is a point in the ear to take out 3 to 5 drops of blood, to take out the heat that is forming inside the patient, to improve their symptoms. Next, please. And here's the measurement that I did of the chakras energy centers. And I measured the energy of the chakras, and when I measure the energy of these chakras, I am measuring the energy of the 5 internal massive organs. Chakras are energy concentrations that we cannot see by the naked eye, and but they exist. They are very important to sending energy to all organs, cells, and systems to their proper functioning. And as I told you, all the internal massive organs of these patients were in the lowest level of energy, meaning that all energy produced by the internal organs were not working properly, and only the 7th chakra, that are the spiritual chakra, were working. And this pattern of energy is not only in autism patients. This pattern of energy is very common nowadays in quite the majority of the population in the world, in all kinds of disease, such as diabetes, hypertension, patients with diabetes, hypertension, cancer, myocardial infarction, strokes, autoimmune disease, all kinds of pain, anxiety, depression, panic syndrome. All of them has this energy deficiency pattern due to the influence of the electromagnetic radiation that our body is suffering constantly, mainly after the 5G technology implementation that is harming our health, our energy, and leading to propensity to have so many infectious and non-infectious complications. And in this case of patients of autism, you can see that there are increasing number of patients with autism nowadays, but this is caused by this reduced energy inside the internal massive organs, that in this specific patient, I measured the energy of his parents, mother and father, and they also have energy deficiency inside the 5 massive organs. And in this case, his father is treating nowadays for cancer, and his mother also is treating for anxiety and other pains in the body, but they all have energy deficiencies like these patients. But I cannot say that this happened when he was conceived 16 years ago, but nowadays they all have the same energy deficiency pattern, that are these energy deficiency, and all the family nowadays are treating not these patients, but his mother, father, and his sister is also with these energy deficiencies, and they are all receiving the same treatment, changing the dietary aspect and doing acupuncture and replenishing all these organs using high diluted medication. Why I am using high diluted medication instead of the use of high concentrated medication, I will show you at the end of this presentation. Next, please. And this is a theory that I wrote in 2015 and published in 2020, entitled Constitutional Homeopathy of the 5 Elements based on Traditional Chinese Medicine. In this theory, I'm using homeopathy, but using traditional Chinese medicine reasoning, because when I started to study homeopathy in Brazil, I realized that homeopathy is a very good medication to be used in the treatment of all kinds of disease nowadays. But the problem is that the homeopathy physician cannot understand how is the mechanism of action of homeopathy medication. And for this reason, I use traditional Chinese medicine reasoning, but using homeopathy medication to treat the patients nowadays. And nowadays, using this theory, we can know how homeopathy works, because I'm using theory from TCM that exists and have their theory very consolidated for more than 5,000 years. But I can use homeopathy medication because homeopathy is very easy medication to find here in Brazil. And in China, they usually use Chinese herbs to treat all these patients that I had the problem to find in Brazil. We have Chinese herbs to use, but it's more expensive and it's not so easy to find. And that's why using this new theory, the patient can be treated without having so many costs or so many complications, because even the use of Chinese herbs nowadays, we have problems because they are considered highly concentrated medication and can harm even more the new pattern of energy that the human being is having nowadays. And in this table in the right, you can see the type of homeopathy, the name of each homeopathy medication that I'm using to treat each internal massive organ. To treat the liver, I use phosphorus. To treat kidney, I use natrium muriaticum. To treat the heart, I use sulfur. To treat lung, I use silicia. And to treat spleen, I use calcarea carbonica. This treatment, in the beginning, I usually orientate to patient to use for 1 year, but in my daily practice, I realized that 1 year is very, it's not enough to replenish. I think due to this influence of this electromagnetic radiation, I think we need to use for the entire life, because I think this influence will not, it will continue harming our health, and that's why we need to use continuously. Next, please. And all these slides is only to show that his parents and his sister were also having the same energy pattern, and they are using the same type of treatment, using Chinese dietary counseling or acupuncture, and replenishing these chakras energy centers using homeopathy medications. Next, please. And this is another study that I did in my clinic from 2015 to 2020, analyzing 1,000 patient chakras energy centers. And from this study that was published last year, I concluded that more than 90% of all my patients were in the lowest level of energy. You can see in the table in the right, I'm showing the energy of the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth chakra that corresponds to the liver, kidney, heart, lung, and spleen. They are all without energy in all age groups. In this table, I divided the patients into baby, children, adolescent, young adults, and older patients. And independently on the type of diagnosis that these kinds of patients are having, such as emotional or physical, or have some comorbidities such as diabetes, hypertension, myocardial infarction, cancer, or other disease, they are in the same energy pattern that are energy deficiencies. And in this case, in another publication that I wrote last year entitled, Are We Vaccinating COVID-19 Patients? Are we vaccinating immunocompromised or immunocompetent? I said in this publication that the majority of the population in this world is considered immunocompromised due to this energy deficiency pattern, because this result in this study could be a sample of what is happening in the whole world nowadays, because this energy deficiency is caused by the influence of this electromagnetic radiation that is affecting all countries in all the environments in the whole world. Next, please. And the result of this treatment, he reported that he was more willing and more focusing and has more attention and concentration, and also less anxiety. And he, according to his mother, he improved very much with this kind of treatment, and was able to complete the course of Portuguese at another school. And he also started to have the piano classes, and also he's starting to have another psychology therapy nowadays, but he is in this school, and he is willing to have friends at the school, and there are friends in the school that are shy, but he is not very shy nowadays because he is in this treatment. But I told you that all his classmates also have this energy deficiency like him, and he is much more better than his colleagues because they are not treating their energy deficiencies, but he is also improving and treating this condition, and this improved very much his self-esteem, I think, and this was good to him to hear that he is not different from the other colleagues. Next, please. And in the next slide, I'm showing the diverse publications that I wrote about the treatment of diverse disease, or emotional or physical symptoms such as gestational diabetes, hypertension, patients with myocardial infarctions, patients with language impairment. Patients with language impairments, they have energy deficiency in the third chakra, that's the heart. And as I told you, patients with autism, they are having this language impairment because they do not have energy in the heart meridian. And when you treat this energy deficiency, the patient will improve. But you need to treat all the system, but not only the organ, because one organ is dependent, they need to receive the energy from the liver, for example. And the liver needs to receive energy from the kidney, that needs to receive energy from the lung, and lung needs to receive energy from the spleen. And for this reason, to treat the heart, you needed to treat the whole system. And the medication to use in this kind of treatment, you need to give according to the sequence of the generation cycle in traditional Chinese medicine. Next, please. And all kinds of infections, community and also nosocomial infections, they are all having energy deficiency in the root of this tree. And all kinds of infections nowadays are treated in the leaf level. But what I want to say in all my presentations, and also in this presentation, is patients with infections, all kinds of infections, have energy deficiency in the root of this tree. And that's why when you treat these alterations in the root, you can treat the patient's infections, also community and nosocomial infections, without using any kind of antibiotics. Next, please. And here there is some article that I wrote about the treatment of patients with depression, anxiety, panic syndrome, patients with the postpartum depression, patients with panic syndrome in adolescents. There are so many articles that I wrote. And all of them have in common these energy deficiencies in the 5 internal massive organs, leading to a diverse clinical manifestation. In traditional Chinese medicine, they say that the same energy imbalances in the root of that tree can lead to a diverse clinical manifestation in the leaf level. And one clinical manifestation can come from diverse energy imbalances in the root. And that's why when we treat the root, we can treat all the patient's conditions at the same time. But even the same patients with the same diagnosis can have diverse energy imbalances. Next, please. Here are, in this slide, I'm showing that all patients with cancer nowadays also have this energy deficiency pattern. And that is why in all treatments nowadays, such as emotional or physical symptoms, nowadays Western medicine is treating the leaf level, but what we need to understand is that we need to treat also the root to treat the cause of the manifestation of all symptoms and not treating only the symptoms. Next, please. Using this kind of therapy, if you treat the root, I have some other publications saying that we can treat also patients with cancer only using this kind of therapy, because cancer also is coming from energy deficiency and formation of internal fire. And that's why I prove treating patients with atypical PEP cell exam, or there are one publication showing that one patient with malignant thyroid cancer also was treated with this condition only using Chinese dietary counseling, auricular acupuncture with apex bloodletting, and replenishing all her chakras energy centers using homeopathy medications. And next, please. And here's some other dermatology problems. All dermatological problems came from these energy deficiencies inside the internal 5 massive organs. And that is why, as said by Hippocrates said we need to treat the patient and not the disease. If we treat only the disease and do not treat the entire patient holistically, we could use medication that could harm even more the energy that are in the root and causing so many other complications. And that's why, next please. And here are some articles that I wrote regarding the formation of autoimmune disease. And in autoimmune disease in traditional Chinese medicine came from energy deficiencies in the root also, mainly in deficiency. And that is why if we rebalance this internal energy and putting in the same height the yin yang energy, we can negativate all the markers of the autoimmune disease, and the patient could be cured without even using corticosteroids or immunosuppressive medications. Next, please. Here are some other articles showing that patients with glaucoma is not a localized disease only in the eye, but is only a reflection of energy imbalances that the patient has in the root, as I showed you in the beginning of this presentation, when we treated the patient with leg pain, but using rebalancing of the energy in the yin and yang blood, the patient improved from his glaucoma condition. Even I do not know that the patient has such glaucoma symptoms also. And also I'm showing that all infectious problem disease could be treated without using any antibiotics if we understand the how is formed the disease, since the energy imbalances in the root level, and considering the influence of the the influence of the external pathogenic factors that Western medicine do not understand yet, that the influence of wind and cold mainly could increase the chance of having hospital infection and other infections. And that is why I'm beginning to finish another article showing why the infection control programs cannot control all the infections nowadays. This could be caused by that the Western medicine is not taking into account the energy imbalances and the influence of the external pathogenic factors, leading to formation of the disease. Next, please. Here's another article showing the treatment of so many other eye problems and the patients with addiction in marijuana and other treatment of asthma. All patients nowadays have in common these energy deficiencies, and that is why if we treat these deficiencies, we can treat all the patients' conditions. Even patients with autism will improve it also. Next, please. In this article that I am saying that patients that are complaining for infertilities, women and men, they have in common energy deficiency in the five internal massive organs. And the chakra is the same as the internal massive organs. And that is why I use the chakra to say the internal massive organs energy, but it is the same meaning. And when the man has oligospermia or azoospermia, the problem is on the root in the energy level, and we needed to treat it using high diluted medication instead of the use of high concentrated medication that I will show you. And when the patient has normal laboratory exams and have symptoms, these do not mean that the patient do not have anything. These mean that the problem could be the energy level that do not appear in the laboratory exams in the beginning. And next, please. Here are some other infectious disease that some patients with urinary infections or recurrent urinary tract infection, patients with constipation is very common in patients with autism, or patients that has hemorrhoids or gastritis. All these clinical manifestations has in common these energy deficiencies in the five internal massive organs, nowadays caused by the influence of the electromagnetic radiation in our lives. Next, please. Here is to show you that the patients with essential tremors, a hospital infection, and fibromyalgia all have in common these energy deficiencies. Next, please. And here to show you that patient with psoriasis, patient with rheumatoid arthritis, patient that dyspnea when have mitral valve stenosis could not be caused by the stenosis, but by these energy deficiencies. And the physician could have be difficult to have these diagnosed because all these alterations are not visible by the naked eye, and only the physician that has trainment of these, how to do these energy deficiency diagnosis could have this type of diagnosis. But this is important to you to know that we need to have in mind that all the patients nowadays have these energy deficiencies, and we need to begin to treat these deficiencies, to treat the cause and not just the symptoms. Next, please. Here are some articles that I wrote regarding the COVID-19 infection and all complications after COVID-19 infection, such as dyspnea, fatigue, and so many other complications after the treatment could be caused not by the virus itself, but by the type of medication that we are using, high concentrated or high diluted medication. Because as I show you, the majority of patients that are having COVID-19 infection have in common these energy deficiencies, leading to a state of immunocompromised state. And that is why when you use highly concentrated medication, you reduce even more this vital energy of this patient and harming even more. And all complications of this infection is caused by the type of medication, not by the virus itself. Next, please. Here's another publication. Is the population in the world the same as in the past? I'm saying that the population that we have nowadays is not the same as we have 8, 10, 20 or 50 years ago, because of this influence of this electromagnetic radiation is leading to less energy inside the internal organs and leading to a state of immune deficiencies. And that is why we need to know this. The information is very important to us to know that for this new type of population, we need to change our therapy to highly diluted medication. And next, please. Next, yes. Oh, my secretary, she forgot to put the Schultz law. I will tell you. I said that I will explain why we need to use high diluted medication. In the Schultz law created in 1888 by 2 German researchers, they say that the use of high concentrated medication can reduce even more the vital energy of the patient and can lead to even to death. And when we use high diluted medication, we can increase this vital energy, and it's this effect that we need to have in this new type of population in any kinds of treatment nowadays, including autism patients, to improve these energy deficiencies and to do not harm or leading to more complications. And the conclusion of this study is that patients with autism, they have energy deficiencies in the 5 internal massive organs that is leading to less energy in the entire body. And I didn't told you, but the energy, the internal massive organs that is responsible for memory and concentration is the kidney, and the heart is responsible for the communication that's very affected in this patient, and the anxiety is caused by these energy deficiencies, and all the complications came from these energy deficiencies inside the internal massive organs. The use of this treatment, replenishing this energy and rebalancing the yin and yang blood is very important and the best treatment nowadays for this kind of patients, because it is treating the root and not only the symptoms. Next, please. Thank you for your attention. If you have any question, I will be very, very happy to answer you. Sorry for the long presentation.